Welcome, everyone, to season 6 of the Runners Roundtable. It is the Beyond Pace season, and it is the season that is dedicated to the stories and the memories that make running worthwhile and that make running something just so incredibly beautiful in the way that it transforms us. And I am so grateful, just so grateful that people say yes to being on the podcast and to sharing their stories and to talking with me. And this episode, it's Becky Hernandez. And we just had a great discussion before we started recording because Becky is a little bit further along in the motherhood journey than I am. And it's really helpful to know that I can survive the next 5 to 8 years with my children because your kids are that much older than mine. And it's wonderful because I was actually just thinking about this yesterday in terms of how running has been a constant companion of mine as I've raised my kids, and how I can't believe that I decided to do something hard like running while also doing what I say is the hardest thing, which is being a mother and raising kids. And to know that that's kind of how I started running. I didn't think I could. And someone told me, I have 2 kids. If I can do it, you can do it. So talking to you, and I'm like, okay, so I can definitely make it to 21 with my children, right? Like I can
Yes.
make it 21 and 24, and like we can get there. But it is really hard, especially on those days when there is that guilt that comes with running and
Mhm.
feeling like, oh, I'm running when I should be doing XYZ for my kids, or when I need to
Yes.
do all this other stuff. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that once, just after you introduce yourself, which is what I'll ask you to do now, is just tell us a little bit about yourself. So tell us your name in your voice and your history with running, and also just what's your relationship with running right now.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie, for inviting me here in this space and to share my story. So my name is Becky Hernandez. I'm a San Jose native, lived out here in California my entire life. I am 52 years old. So it's been got to see, I've been really fortunate to see the valley just in this area grow to what it is today. I am a mom of two, as you mentioned, as you alluded to. I was a single parent since they were like toddlers, so they've been part of my running journey, but at the same time separate from my running journey because that was something that I used running as an escape, especially when I was going through my divorce. So that was kind of propelled me into that endurance phase of running half marathons, and like I said, because I needed to feel something different. But over time, I went from running. Actually, I'm going to even go back further. Before I even stepped into, put on a pair of running shoes, my passion was group exercise. So get me a step riser and like some music, and I will like go to town on the step. I love step aerobics. That was my first love. That gave me confidence to to just try something different. So, I was on a weight loss journey. So my relationship with running started off with, I can't do group exercise when I'm on vacation. What am I going to do? So I found a hotel treadmill and I put my yellow Walkman, my cassette tape, my headphones, and I did 2 miles and I hated it. I was like, this is awful. Thank God I'm only going to do this when I can't be in my group X. But fast forward to, a couple years later, when I had my first child, I needed my schedule changed. I couldn't get to the gym as often. And so I did my first timed event, a 10K. It was after the birth of my son. So it was like, like maybe like 6 months postpartum. I did a 10K and it was awesome. It was great. I loved it. And that got me, I wasn't able to really run a lot around that time, but I would sprinkle it in when I could. When I got pregnant with my daughter, I ran another 10K with her. And it wasn't until 2005 when I was going through my divorce where I said, you know what, I need to do something different. I need to feel something different just because it was just my personal life was, going through, with managing, I needed my outlet. So I signed up for my first half marathon in 2005, and that was it. From then on, I just really enjoyed that distance. And I felt like I called myself an accidental runner because I didn't mean to run. It was just like, what else am I going to do? I don't have a group exercise class to go to. I didn't mean to run a half marathon, but I was going through a divorce. I needed to feel something different. when I ran my first marathon in 2013, I was about to turn 40 and it was my midlife crisis. So I was like, I need to feel something different. I need to do something different. So it just seemed like I had something that something was happening in my life, and running was the way that it was a great coping mechanism. It was a great way to celebrate or to cope with what was happening in my life. And so when you ask about my, kids and how I managed all that, like I kept it separate for a while. Like this was my time. And then I would able
Mm.
to compartmentalize and go back to my kids. But then when they were old enough, I would drag them to the 5K, the turkey trots. Let's go. We're doing the turkey trots. Hey, we're going. And in the high school years, I kind of lost them. Like I couldn't drag them anymore, right? I couldn't
Yeah.
physically drag them to the turkey trot. So they stopped going. But now my son, he's been doing 5Ks with me. He'll do a few 5Ks every year with me. And he's motivated his friends to run 5Ks. So I just like, oh my gosh. So I'm really proud of just just maybe, I never set out to be like this role model for my kids or like, you're going to follow my footsteps. But I think they realize like there's so much fun and joy in running, but also having that community, which I have found along the way. I was solo, but now I have a running community that has propelled me forward into spaces that I never thought, or into distances I never thought I could.
So you went from 2 miles feeling awful on the treadmill to
Yes.
now, what are the distances that you normally tackle?
Well, I enjoy, all distances. Everyone asks, what's your favorite distance? I'm like, the one that I'm running, the one that I'm really running, actively running. But this past Saturday, Mother's Day weekend, there was a group of 10 of us that just completed a 50K trail run here in Almaden, Quicksilver County Park. And it was a 31 mile, 6,000, over 6,000 feet of elevation climbing. It took us, 10 and a half hours to complete. But that was one where, you know what, the whole time we never really looked at our watches. It was all about, let's just soak in this time. So, to be able to say like I hated 2 miles on a treadmill to now we did 50K and we're like the joy, the enthusiasm, the camaraderie through the highs and the lows of that experience. That was my fifth time doing that specific event, and it was so different. And it was it was like all I remember is I have a bunch of pictures that I took throughout because I volunteered to keep us on like we had a thread of folks following us. So I said every hour I'll post to say where we're at, what our mile marker is, and in every picture we're smiling, we're laughing. No, we're really enjoying that moment. All of us, just the fact that there was 10 of us, all women, and five of them were doing their first 50K. So they were really just, that was the motivation to be a part of that experience with them, being able to say that when they crossed the finish line, like, do you want to do it again? Some of them were like, no, but some of them were like, ask me tomorrow. But right now, no. But maybe tomorrow I'll say yes. So yeah, so just being able to in, be a part of that experience, knowing that I've been through it, and it was like, if I can do this, I know people can do this. It's with training. I'm not going to say like, oh, just go out and do a 50K. Do some training behind that, but it is possible.
I want to ask you another question because you had mentioned that the running at first was this thing for you that you kept separate. And that's something that I reflect on often in terms of how solitary running can feel, and yet how much of running is actually rooted in community. So I was wondering, when did that switch happen for you in terms of like, this is running for me? Because I know it wasn't like yesterday, you're like, oh, running is for me to kind of feel something different. And then today you
Mhm.
woke up, yeah, let's do a 50K with 10 women. Like, what was
Yes,
kind of that trajectory for you of
yes,
seeing running as a tool that connected you, it seems like, to just something greater than
right.
your own personal experience?
So I'm going back in time. So so again, there I am on the treadmill for I do my 2 miles, and in fact, for the first like 5 years of my running career, my running journey was all on a treadmill inside a gym because I was so like just self-conscious about running outside. I was, at one point in my life, I think in 1997 was my peak. I was over 200 pounds. I'm 5'2", so over 200 pounds. I was, that was my goal to lose weight going to the gym. I love step aerobics, and I was able to start my weight loss journey through through group exercise and not really focusing on what I was eating, but just movement. And then transition to a treadmill as to like, cross train. But again, I was very self-conscious and so I was on a treadmill for like the first 5 years of my life, of my running journey. And it wasn't until that 2005, going through my divorce, when I said, okay, I'm going to do a half marathon. I joined it was called San Jose Fit. And in that training group, they had to run outside. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to run outside. So I really had to psych myself out. But knowing that I was running in a group, not by myself, I felt like, okay, it's like group exercise. Like you're going into a class, you're running, there's a leader. We had our coach, Nicole, who I'm still friends with today. We reconnected after many years. She was pushing her baby in a stroller and she would do a run walk method. And I felt like, okay, I can do this. Like I've connected with that group that was, we were the yellow group. I connected with them. I felt like we were all in the same level, same pace, same objective. And so that gave me like, oh, like this is like being in the gym, but outside, And so gave me the first taste of like, this can be a group thing. Running can be a group exercise activity. Fast forward to 2011, I connected with he's my partner now, Bertrand Newsom. He was organizing these obstacle course races, like mud runs and like tough mudders and things like that. And he recruited me. He's like, "Let's go. Like, I think you'd be great at this." I'm like, "What? I don't know. Climbing, scaling walls." I'm like, "I don't know if I could jumping in mud pits. I don't know if I can do this." But I said, "Okay, I'm going to do this." I signed up. And again, it was a group of 16, a group of 20, a group of 25, and we would get together to train. I thought, again, this was like, oh my gosh, I love this because I wasn't singled out. I didn't feel like I was like singled out. We were just like like together. So that shifted the mindset of running as a solo sport,
Mhm.
more like this could be a great community, a way to connect to the community. So that's why so it was the shift happened around with San Jose Fit, but then it really became something that was a staple of like a part of the running community in 2011 when Too Legit Fitness was founded. And we continued from then on. It just grew and grew. And I just can't even, I think that really pushed me in the direction of like, trying the marathon, trying other things. Like I also pace races now. I lead a pace team coordinator. So being able to just be a part of somebody's first time journey, towing the line for a half marathon or a marathon, I just go back to how I felt and how scared I was, how nervous I was, how just no confidence whatsoever. So I now go forward, today, look around and say like, hey, I've been there. I know what that feels like. You just lean into that a little bit, but you got a community here that's going to catch you. You got a community here that's going to push you forward. And I think that's what's been really the motivating factor for me of being part of this run club, being part of the Run Too Legit Fitness community and the run club that we support every Tuesday. The community runs on Saturday or whatever race we do. I just try to make friends. I'm like, my kids always tell me like, gosh, mom, every time we go somewhere, you talk to people. I go, well, why not? That's what we're here for. Let's connect. You never know. You just never know. Maybe that, like, we had just talked about, like, I was meant to talk to this person. This person was meant to come into my life. We were meant to cross paths. So why not, be curious and meet as many people and make those connections.
I think what you're saying is for many people kind of like a balm, right? Like it's very soothing to think of there is a community out there and that it can feel like a group if you go to a group, right? Like I think and I've talked about it often on the podcast and I reflect on it often for myself personally in terms of those group runs and finding community and that how hard it is to have the courage to show up to a new
Hmm.
space and to not know if you're going to belong, if you're going to fit in, if you're going to make a friend, if you're going to, if you're my biggest issue is always the like, am I going to be left behind or
Yep.
am I going to be acknowledged as the new person, which is what I want. I want someone to be like, oh yes, you're new here. Hi. Like, to make that connection. So I I appreciate what you say, because it's always important to see those uncomfortable moments as opportunities to create connection with people, which
Mhm.
you won't get those connections if you don't show up, right? Or if you don't
Right.
kind of push yourself to going somewhere new, or just, in my case, like even with the podcast, where it's like anytime I send an email, I'm like, I might get rejected or like no
Mhm.
response or whatever. That happens. But also what happens is that sometimes I do create real connections with people where it's like, okay, cool. Like now I know you and I've met you. And now it's like, I'm so glad that I met you today. But
Yeah.
I guess the question I want to ask you, which is what I always ask people who are big community creators, is not so much the community side of what you're doing, but kind of that speaking to that person that is questioning whether they should show up. What do you say to them?
I say, the first thing, thank you. Thank you for making time, for prioritizing you and coming to this space of movement. And this is your space, your pace. We always, in fact, during the 50K, one of our mantras was forward is a pace. That's what we kept saying. Forward is a pace. So, and just, and I just, usually I set them aside and have a one-on-one. So as I mentioned about my group exercise experience, I crossed over and became a group exercise instructor in 2012. So so I became a group exercise instructor in 2012, a run coach in 2024. And I think, and I did that more for my own, like, curiosity, like, could I do this, and learning. But I think also that also helps me just approach people like with more like, how can I help you? And I think they look at like, oh, that I'm hopefully a source of information, a source of, motivation, and like, hey, I see you and I know that you're going to get through this. We're going to figure out a way forward, right? Forward is a pace. There's modifications, there's things that we can do. And then afterwards I always check in with them, like, how'd it go? How'd you feel? Is this something, any feedback that you can give me? We want to, we're here for you. I'm not here to teach a class by myself. So it's important for me to come back. And it's same with our run club. I tell people, like, let us know what we're doing, what things are working well. So I'm always also looking for feedback from our newbies, that we call them, that come into our run club. In fact, tonight is our run club, and we always start off with like, let's meet like, raise your hand if you're new. And I know some people probably don't like, I'm not going to raise my hand, but we just celebrate. Like, we just put a name to the face, and just like, and we tell our everybody here, like, remember, that was you. That was you maybe a year ago. Maybe that was you 2 years ago. Maybe that was you last week, and you're back. So let's just make that connection. Let's welcome them into our space and let them find, where they feel comfortable, and just meet them where they're at. And I think that's important to say, like, we're going to meet you where you're at, and when you're ready to, take that next level, take that next step, we're here to support you.
Yeah, I wrote this down because what you said made me think of, it's it's almost like you're going from small talk to real conversation, right? Where it's that follow up, and that's usually what's lacking when it's new community settings, where there isn't any follow up, or you finish the run or you finish the workout and then it's like people just leave, and it's like, okay, but like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
hey, you
Yeah.
new person, how was that today? How did it feel? Because it is that real connection. That's what can shift someone's entire opinion of an experience, right? Like where they
Right.
can go and they can be, and it's in all fitness spaces, right? Whether you're talking about your step class or whether you're talking about a run club or even like a yoga class, where it's like that moment of just creating that real connection at the end. There's something about feeling seen that happens
Hmm.
in those moments of like, oh, you actually saw me here today. I wasn't just someone who showed up and then was like, okay, bye, see you later. There was actually connection there. And I think that's again, what came up for me was that kind of that small talk of like, yeah, hey, how are you? Okay, cool, bye. To actual
Yeah.
real conversation of, so how was it for you today? And what feedback do you have? And it's, you're showing that person that not only do you see them, but you also value what their opinion is, and you want their opinion so that you can improve. So I think
Yeah.
that's really really incredibly powerful. And before we get into your memory, I just have this one final question, and that's, did you envision that running would bring you to where you're at today?
No. And in fact, I was just thinking about like how running, you know, it was served as a stopgap, or like this was just, I'm just going to plug that in when I can't get to my gym. And how it's, when I see it where it is today, a a lot of things had to happen to get me to where I'm at today. And it was, one was my divorce. I look back and I think, it was a horrible time. It was just a very, you know, time in my life, which was a lot of turmoil, transitioning to being a single parent with a toddler and a newborn, and using running as an outlet. But I look back and I think, like, thank you. Like, I could look up, I could look at that and say thank you for that experience, because it pivoted me toward this half marathon, forced me into it, right? The accident, by accident, just forced me into that. It was a choice. Don't get me wrong. I paid for the half marathon. Yeah, it was my choice. But I think that was something that that it propelled me in that direction. So there are things in life that happen. We don't know why they're happening. And we question, like, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? And, but then you realize, you look back and you're like, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. And I appreciate, that I crossed paths with Bertrand, and he created this space, and that I said yes to those obstacle course races, and it got me into that community. Saying yes to going to training, like, do you want to be a group exercise instructor? I'm like, you want me to bounce with a mic in front of people, teaching and leading and gasping for air and being judged? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay. So all those yeses, and being scared, being nervous, knowing that I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be ridiculed, I'm going to fail, I'm going to look dumb, but just saying, like, it's okay. You're going to get through it, right? You just got to get through that feeling of uncomfortableness. And don't get me wrong, today I still teach classes and I'm still nervous. I get up there and I'm like, because I care. I want to lead this class. I want to be valuable. Like, this was a good value of time for the folks that showed up. I teach a 5:45 a.m. class, so that's early. So those people have set their alarms. They're intentional. They're like, I want something. They want something out of these classes. So I take that to heart, because I'm also a 5 a.m. person. I go to my classes. I also take classes at that hour, and I want to, feel something. So I take it seriously, in the sense of, like, and I don't want to be a waste to anybody's time, so, um, you know, that's where, I feel like the running, saying yes to those things, outside of running, in running, has just been an experience. And I would have never ever have guessed, if you told me this, in 2005, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, running this first half marathon. You've run 104. You ran your first marathon in 2013. You've already run, 59, 59 marathons and ultra marathons. I would have been like, no, no, I'm not. No way, no way. But I think just surrounding yourself by enablers,
Yeah.
the community that says, I'm going to go do this, and it might sound crazy. They're like, all right, I'm going to join you. Tell me when, tell me the time, I will be there. So that has really been transformative.
Yeah. Again, the power of community, right? Of being in community, of receiving community, of opening yourself up to community, all of that. Like,
Yeah.
you have no clue where your path is going to lead, but it's made easier. The not knowing is made easier when you have others on that path with you, right? Like,
Yes.
that's part of it. So, coming back to the theme of this season, to your favorite running memory, do you have a memory to share with us?
Oh gosh, there are many. So I thought about this, and because I think, um, uh, of a time running a marathon where the wheels fell off very early. And this was San Francisco 2017, I believe. And came into that experience thinking, or came into that race thinking, I am going to race. I want to get a PR, or a PR on that course, which would have been like 4:10, 4:15, something around there, 4 hours and 10 minutes, or 4:15, on a very challenging course. San Francisco has about like 1,400 feet of elevation. And the wheels fell off very early. I'm talking like mile 3. Mile 3, I'm like, it was like I had like a little balloon, somebody popped it and it was just like all there. It was like somebody came and just popped all the tires on my car. And I'm like, I'm on blocks. Like I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And I thought to myself, and at that point I was running with Bertrand. We were running that race together. And we didn't know if we were going to stick together, but I knew that I wanted to race and he was right there. And I could tell the wheels had not fallen off on him. But for me, I'm like, mentally, I was starting to shut down at mile 3. And I thought to myself, okay, I can just what am I going to do here? Because this is not the plan. This was not the plan. I wanted to race, and so I started just feeling already defeated at mile 3 and I still had 23 miles to go. And I thought, okay, these are the things we can control: effort, we can control attitude, and that's where I started just my attitude shifting and my effort. Like, okay, I'm going to pull back on the effort because you're not racing now. Let's just figure out what else can you do though. Attitude. And it just knowing that mind shift, like this can be like, yes, I go, I'm going to chase a PR today. I'm going to see, it's going to be probably my slowest marathon. That'll be my PR today. Like I just shifted and it just took this weight off my shoulders. And I just smiled and I looked back and every mile marker, we were just, laughing. We were cheering people on. We were on our social media, like giving people updates, going and taking videos and just laughing about it. Um, being mindful of like gratitude, like we are still moving, right? At that point, it wasn't, the mantras of forward is a pace. It wasn't it wasn't in here because I was like, I needed a PR. And it was more of a learning experience and being able to just take in the sights and sounds of San Francisco, look around me and say like, this is a beautiful thing right here. Like I am, and I thought, because my kids were little at that, well, younger. And I thought, I'm like 5, 6 hours and my kids aren't, I don't have to worry about my kids. Like this is my time. Like I don't have to think about what's for breakfast, what's for lunch, what are we going to do? Is the homework done? Laundry, all the things. We had talked about before the podcast about the guilt of
Mm-hmm.
running and when our kids are, just having children. I still have guilt. My kids are 24 and 21, and I still have guilt leaving, going to run. I have guilt I get guilted by my mom. She's she's 80 years old and she's like, what are you guys doing? Why are you out there? You should be at home with your kids, cooking, cleaning, gardening, or whatever I'm supposed to be doing. Because that's what mom thinks I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So the guilt is there at all angles. But I look at that race and it really was a pivotal moment of where that is where attitude and effort can change. Even if I was on track for a PR, if I was in a negative space, judging myself, like I'm not going fast enough, I'm worrying about things that I couldn't control at that time. I think that would have been one of the most miserable experiences of my life, and I probably wouldn't have run anymore. I probably would have said like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's not for me. But I chose to look at it differently, and it helped with the community that was around me. I had Bertram around me. People that I knew were on the course would come by and high five, and we would laugh, and we would just, we would motivate them to keep going, keep going. We would say, send help, send help for us, or like save us a beer at the end. We were just like, just go, we're fine, we're fine. Because they would ask, are you guys okay? We're like, we're fine, just keep going. And I'm grateful for Bertrand that he stuck with me. He could have probably easily have finished an hour ahead of me because again, I don't think the wheels had fallen off so early for him. Mine was again mile 2, mile 3. Taking that experience to what just happened this past weekend running the 50K, that's what we focused on with these women. Were out of the 10 women, 5 had trained super hard, super strong. So they went out to test their mountain legs and they killed it. The 5 of us that stuck together, we just took it all in, soaked in the aid stations. I think we spent probably too much time in the aid stations because it's so much food and just music and things like that. But we looked at every single mile as a something to celebrate. Every climb we celebrated. Every descent we celebrated. We really looked at finishing healthy. Like let's hope nobody falls. No sprained ankles. And we finish up right. And all of that, check, check, check. We got all that done. We finished. And like I said, some people said afterwards, like, I think I'm going to do this again. I want to do this again. Other people, they're like, ask me tomorrow. But I think that's where, being able to focus on other things rather than how fast am I going? What's my time? Is more like, how am I feeling? I'm having a great time. We were at one point, we were like, what, mile 23, 24. It was 8.5 hours of elapsed time. We had been on our feet for 8.5 hours. And I said, how are you guys feeling? They're like, you know what? On a road marathon, we at mile 23, we are beat up mentally, physically. Here, we're like, okay, yes, we still have another 8 miles to go, but we felt our spirits were lifted. We weren't as taxed. We had a fire that was lit from the start to finish. And I think that was something that was so nice to see. And I'm so grateful that I was able to just experience that with them. And also for me, like my cup is filled, I think for the next year, like I'm good. Like that experience is going to carry me for the rest of the year and beyond.
That's so I'm going to ask this question, and you've already kind of said it, but now I just want to ask it just so that my brain can process it. When you think of this memory, and you've given us a journey between, 2017 and then even that 50K that you just did, we're talking about 9 years. So when we're thinking about this initial race in San Francisco, how would you say that experience has shaped who you are as a runner today?
My okay, my ego. I think I realized I put my ego. I realized that I was chasing at that point, I was probably still dealing with like imposter syndrome.
Mm.
That I was thinking like I'm not a runner yet, even though at that point I think that might have been my like marathon 15, but I still felt like I wasn't good enough. And so I think I used the clock to judge how well of a run, like how good am I? Like, oh, time, like, oh, look what I'm doing, and look at my splits. And it wasn't for me to show people, it was me to show myself. Like I needed to see it to validate myself. And and after that, during that experience, and after when I knew like am I failing? Like, did I fail at this because I'm at mile 3 and I can't, like my body just, my mentals, it was shutting down on me to what I wanted to do. And I thought, wow, I'm not fit. You're fake, I was dealing with a lot of that really reflecting on that. I think that was my fear, like I'm not good enough. All those things came back. And coming out of that, knowing that when it ended, and I'm like, I feel amazing. I have all I remember was laughing. I remember, high fiving. I remember, yeah, my feet hurt. Don't get me wrong. We were out there for 5 hours and 40 minutes, I think. And my goal was 4:10, and I went into it with 5:40. So I said I PR'd on the other way. But other all of that, I look back and I think that was probably one of my most favorite San Francisco marathons that I've experienced since then. But I think that was just being able to take away other things and not worry about pace and getting the confidence and the validation through how I felt after. And also the feedback that I got from the friends that were on the course that were like, "Oh my God, it was so great to see you! You high fiving or you cheering us on really gave me the boost in the last 3 miles." I'm like, "Oh, good. I'm glad."
You're like, I was
That
dying, but I'm glad I worked for
exactly.
you.
Yeah, like but I think that like the coach, I felt like inadvertently I was like a coach on the go. Like I was just
Yeah.
like I was not able to do what I needed to do. So then I said, okay, I'm gonna then let me take everybody's energy and then take that and push it right back out. So I think that was a defining moment for me, in how races can be spectacular and pace has nothing to do with it, or time has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I feel like I have this discussion a lot, and it's what you're saying right now is actually the exact inspiration for this season. And it's not to say, and I'm going to assume you're going to agree with me, that pace and finish times, I'm not saying that those things aren't important, because they are.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
for many internal and external reasons those things are important. But it is to say that there is more to running than that, because the reality is that race day could have actually turned into something awful had
Yeah.
you not recognized that you have control over your attitude, that you have control over your effort, and that because you have control, you can change how you're approaching the race, right? And I say that just because, like, I have a similar parallel where it was for me, it was that was actually my favorite memory is my worst marathon experience. And for me, the wheels fell off at mile 5. Like mile 5, I was like, yep, it is just not happening today. Like physically, I think I was fine. Mentally, I was just not there. Like
Yeah.
not there to race, because the reality is you do have to be in a certain mental state to race and to push hard and to kind of like push through the doubt of when it gets really hard. And for me, that race day did not turn out like yours. Like it was a fight to the finish. And it was just one of those things of that realization of, I have 21 more miles of this misery. And it remains miserable. And that was just a race where like, I got a side stitch. I cried in a porta potty, like I just had all these things. It's the only race I've ever walked across the finish line because I could not run across the
Yeah.
finish line. So like, and my mindset after that was very much so, I'm a failure. And why am I doing this? Like, if it's going to be so bad, why am I doing this? So I just want to highlight that because your mind could have gone in a different way. Like, even just that simple reframe of, I'm going to PR in the other direction today. Like, that is such a great one that I'm like, I'm going to steal that and I'm going to take that with me this year of like, how fun is it? Because I do talk to people as well about the importance of redefining what it means to set a PR, because you can set a PR in, how many high fives do you give someone on the course? How many of your friends do you see on the course? How many of your athletes do you see on the course? Like those are other things that you can PR in that aren't related to time, that aren't related to your pace or any of that, that are just as meaningful. So I I just wanted to highlight that because oftentimes we think that, or maybe people that are listening, you're thinking that, if you don't have a great race day, that's the end of the world. And what we're both saying is you can have a race day that doesn't go how you want it to go, and you can still show up tomorrow. And
Yeah.
you can still, hopefully, like the two of us, which ironically mine is 2017 as well. But hopefully,
Something about
yeah,
2017.
it was just, it was not good. But, hopefully listening to you and even just what I've shared before is that moment that you think is your worst, or that moment that you think is the
Mhm.
hardest, may actually become the moment that transforms you the most, and the moment that
Yeah.
you hold on to. Like, again, 2017, we're talking about a memory from like 9 years ago. And to see how
Hmm.
like that one day, just how it's bloomed, and how I'm sure a lot of the thoughts that you had that day are also some of the foundations as to who you are as a coach and how
Hmm.
you engage in the runners that you meet, right?
Right, right. And I think that's something that, um, you mentioned like pace and time. There's a time and place for that because yeah, we have athletes sign up with us because they have a goal. They want to achieve a distance PR, a time PR, and we work with our athletes in that space. And I think with our history, and I think what helps our athletes with working with us is that we have the experience, and sometimes you have to go through it, like sort of like when I could tell you all about it, but until you experience it, then you get it. And so when when an athlete will come in and say like I blew up, I like that did not go the way I wanted to, and they're disappointed and they're not happy, you gotta walk them through it. And well, but let's talk about how was your nutrition? Well, I hit my nutrition goals. Awesome. There you go. Like I always look at every race, and I think that 2017 marathon was like, what did I learn from it? what am I going to take away from it that's going to help me in my next one? Because that's the beauty of running. There is a race pretty
Hmm.
much every other weekend. Right? You're going to find something else. And I do believe in timing is everything. And that, again, everything happens for a reason. And it might not have been this one, but it's going to be the next one or whatever it may be, if that's what you're chasing, a time goal or a distance PR or whatever that may be. The goals can shift and change. And and I'm the same, like right now, I'm still chasing eventually going to be get back into training block to chase a Boston qualifying time for a marathon. It's been a while. It's been a couple of years, and I've been chasing one for the last 2 years. I took a break this year because I came out of 2025 sort of broken, like literally, like my back, even my hair hurt. Everything was like, I am done. Like I don't want to go into another marathon training block. So I just took been taking it easy in the sense of like I'm not training for anything like that because I know there's a time and place for that. But right now, mentally, like as you mentioned, the mentals that if it's not there,
Mm-mm.
it's physically the body. The once the brain goes or the mind shifts, the body will follow. And so I need to right now I'm working on just getting back into that mindset of like, okay, let's start training for something like that, and then hopefully the body will follow. I'll see. I'm 52, and I'll be 53 in August, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the seasons are real. When people say like, this was like 10 years ago, somebody said something that reminded me of, or the way they spoke about their training was seasons. And I go, oh, okay, I never really, but okay, I like, I'm just gonna, never really thought about it that way. Now I'm like, oh yeah, this is, I will start a new season soon, and the focus will be different. Right now, this season is just enjoying it, enjoying the kind of taking a laid back approach on training, not being so like being, bound by, what the watch says and what this says and what this says. And just like, I'm just gonna go by feel and enjoy that time.
And you need that time. Like that to me is such a reset for your body and your spirit and your mind. And I'm such a firm believer that you need seasons in order to be in the sport for a long time. Like there have to be those periods of times where things shift for you. Because if not, if you're just doing the same thing every day, every day, every day, and it's always the same goal, you're just going to burn out from that goal. Like either you're physically going to get injured or just mentally you're going to be like, I'm done. Like this is just not fun. But when you
Hmm.
vary it, then our brains like that, right? Like that. How do we learn as adults? We learn as adults by varying what we're doing. We're not necessarily learning anything new, right? Like we're not, but we are learning how to vary what we already know so that we can continue doing it for however long we want to do it. And I I think that's been something that's been really transformative for me, of going from someone who was very focused on times to the past, I'd say, I don't even know how many years, but definitely quite a long time of just like, how can I just feel strong as a runner?
Hmm.
And that has led me to now where I'm like, okay, I think I'm mentally in a place where like I just want to see if I can hit certain times. It's not even like necessarily like PRs because it's just I'm not there. Because again, I think mentally there's got to
Yeah.
be a certain level of there and then your body has to cooperate. But now it's more of like, oh, I actually want to see, like, can I do this in this time? Like, can I do
Hmm.
that? Whereas before it was just, okay, can I do that and feel strong? And feeling
Hmm.
strong, it's so open-ended. Whereas that, can I do this in a specific time? That is a little more narrow focus. And I think we just need those. We need those moments where there is no goal other than just like doing it for fun or just taking it easy. And then, yes, those moments where the goal is a little more narrow, and it's just they're all parts of who we are as runners. um so I appreciate that, and whatever the seasons happen to bring you, that you just show up for them and enjoy them all as they come. I have now a series of questions. They're kind of rapid fire-ish, but we'll see where you take us. So the first question that I have for you is, if you could go back in time to speak to a younger runner version of yourself, what would you say?
Gosh. So my younger version was, again, running was an outlet to losing weight. And I would say to that, to my younger self, that that running strong does not really, is not dictated by that scale, the number on the scale. I think I think it was at somebody, which Alyssa Liu, the Olympian, the gold
Mhm.
medalist. Remember, somebody asked her that question, and she said, "I would tell my younger self nothing, because they got to go through that. That person has to go through that to get to where they are today." And so I like that, and I would, so I would kind of like be very careful what I say, but at the same time, I would not undercut how important fuel is for a runner. And I think I know I was underfueling. I
Mhm.
know that I was starving. I know that I was doing things because I said I needed to be lighter in order to go faster. And now I am, where I'm at today in this season of life. I am on, I have, menopause, all that other stuff. My body has changed, but I feel strong. I feel, as strong as I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So it's not focusing on, making ourselves smaller, but making ourselves strong. And that, food is fuel. That's what I would tell that's what I would remind myself over and over again.
Now, flipping that question, what hopes do you have for your future runner self?
Oh gosh, I want to. One of the finishers at the Quicksilver 50K was 82, and this gentleman named Tim. They said he was his 15th, you know, that doing that race. And I thought to myself, I want to be him. Like I want longevity. I don't, again, taking pace aside, taking all that, just like I want to be up my knees, I want my back.
Mhm.
I want all those parts to be functioning and able to continue what I love to do. And if I'm not able to, at least be able to stay in the runner space through volunteering, through continuing coaching, through continuing just being on the sidelines and cheering, being the loudest cheerleader that I can be for everybody else. So that's where I see myself as just hopefully healthy, hopefully still out there doing what I can do and supporting this wonderful community.
I love that. Okay, this question's my favorite question, and it is, how do you celebrate yourself as a runner?
Oh my gosh, that is a tough one because I could still be critical about what I do and what I'm not doing, but I think it's how I celebrate is running with being connecting with my community. And that's my family, my friends, and not necessarily about running. Like let's go out and celebrate outside of that run circle because I think those connections draw us back in. So it's all circular. I think building on those relationships outside of the running, actually of running, will bring us back stronger. And so I think just building on the community, building on my family, realizing that this is a privilege and an honor to be able to do this, and going back to gratitude and celebrating it with gratitude.
Yeah. Okay, this question's the easiest one, and it's just, can you remind us where to find you and how to best connect with you?
Sure. Right. Okay. So I'm on Instagram at Becky S408. We also have our team, our run club Instagram at Too Legit Fitness. So you can find me on either one. Yeah. So I'm active. We're pretty active through our run club, and we post our weekly meetups that we have. And that's one of the things that our community, our run crew is all our meetups during the week are free. So our run club, our track workout, our long runs on Saturdays, our midweek runs, all free to the community. And we really try to meet up in different places in San Jose. That's our goal, just because accessibility is something that can be a factor where people can't get to the other side of town. I live in East Side San Jose. Most of the runs that we do are in West Side San Jose, and that's something that I want to change. I want to bring. It's very rare that you see a runner on the East Side, but there's tons of runners on the West Side. So it's
Yeah.
like, why not bring that to the East Side? Why not bring that representation and ability and accessibility? So that's something that I'm very want to bring and raise up is, that running can be done by anybody. run and walk. So walking is also included in there. We want to include everybody that from all abilities that it can start here, but it can go, you take it as far as you want to take it.
I love that. Okay. Final question is, what are your final words for us?
Oh my gosh. Well, I just thank you for spending this time with us and chatting. And you know, everything does happen for a reason. And lean into those moments of like, if it's like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do it. Well, what can you do? I do really believe is if it's in that all or nothing, well, where's the middle ground? What can you do? What is that little something that's going to open the door and give you confidence? Because through action is, people always look at other people like, oh, they're so confident. How can they do that? It's like, well, they probably because they've done it. Like that first step, that gives you the confidence to take the next step. And so it's not something that you're just born with. Everybody works hard and takes those steps to build the confidence. So just, be curious, lean into it, and just show up.
Becky, thank you so much for your words and for your story and for everything today. Everyone, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.